Marvel Ultimate Alliance is a game that plagued my childhood for as long as I can remember. I've played this game countless times on countless different consoles throughout countless different points in my life. The best part about playing this game on different consoles was that depending on which platform you played on, you might get an exclusive character to play as. Whether you're playing on the Wii or PS3, or even the Xbox 360. You could either play with Moon Knight or Colossus respectively. Before my 12th birthday, I did some research on the game and realized there was an exclusive edition for the Xbox 360. The Gold Edition. The way the cover art was changed to feature a golden background instead of the blue on the original, and also how there were new characters on the cover, well, I just knew I had to get my grubby little hands on a copy. The Gold Edition acts as a DLC expansion that adds 8 new characters to play as, which included the likes of some villains like Dr. Doom, Magneto, Sabretooth, and even Venom, to some other heroes like Hawkeye, Cyclops, Nightcrawler, and even the Hulk. I begged my mom to get the Gold Edition copy for my 12th birthday, and lo and behold, yeah, here it is. I still have it. A 2016 bundle of both the first and second Ultimate Alliance games was released for the PS4, Xbox One, and even on Windows in July 2016. However, in July 2018, the bundle was removed from the stores due to licensing issues from Activision. However, if you were able to buy the game within these 2 years, well, you'll have it forever. Luckily, I was one of those people. But unfortunately, I didn't have a PS4 back then, just an old and dusty Xbox One, but I still played the heck out of the 2 games on it. Recently, I made a retrospective video covering X-Men Legends 2 Rise of Apocalypse and ended up falling in love with a selection of Marvel action RPG games again. So I decided to break out the aforementioned dusty Xbox One to start up a new playthrough of Ultimate Alliance. With a playthrough comes footage recording, as I plan to make a retrospective video over the game, but I want to make sure I take my time with it and make it a top tier video. So while I'm working on that, here's a character ranking for every character you can play as. There are 33 total characters to play as in the Xbox One version I played on. However, if you played on a PSP version, it would add 4 more characters. One of those characters actually being Hawkeye, who is included in my Xbox One version. The other 3 characters, who are Captain Marvel, Ronin, and Black Widow, I will not be including them in this ranking as I have no good way to actually play the PSP version. So, when it comes to how I'll rank these characters, there are a few things to keep in mind. First, almost each and every character is somewhat viable in a way, whether they act as a support character, a character of high utility, or a high damage dealing one. Depending on what the character is attempting to be, I will keep that in mind when talking about them. However, that does not mean I'll rank them higher just because they do what they're meant to do. There's a good amount of support characters in the game that, despite being solid support characters, render useless unless you're playing strictly co-op. Sometimes having them on your team can help, but the AI in this game isn't very reliable. Also, just know, there definitely will be some personal bias in this ranking. This shouldn't come as a big surprise. I mean, this is a ranking video based off of my opinion, but it's still important to mention. I just like the idea, the powers, and the looks of some characters more than others, but I will do my best to try to focus on their functionality, how they play, and how good they are. There are 5 different tiers I'll be giving each character along with ranking them in order from number 33 to number 1. To start, we have the F tier, which is bottom of the barrel garbage. If a hero is down here, every other related hero is probably a better option than this one. Next up, we have the C tier. Characters that are placed here aren't outright garbage or lackluster, but lack in certain factors which holds them back from other characters you can play as. Next, we have the B tier. These are pretty solid characters to choose from and play with. It's where a majority of the characters in this game lie, and they can be pretty viable if you build them right. We have A tier. These characters are a step above B tier due to them either being close to the best at what they're attempting to do, or are just so excellent at doing one thing that I had to bump them up here. And then we have S tier. There's a handful of heroes in this category, but just know you can make an insane team out of just these characters alone. They excel in high damage output and offer some of the best support or utility to your team. For each hero, I will talk about my favorite build to use with them, which includes my go-to skills, what costumes I primarily use with them, and what gear pieces I thought would complement their style. Without further ado, let's get right into the rankings. Number 33, Colossus. Colossus got a major downgrade from the previous X-Men Legends games in this one. I think the best way to put it is that he's not good at anything in this game. It's like the developers didn't know what they wanted him to be good at. He's got a high body stat, but not a high enough strike stat to match how low his skill damage output is. Also, his body stat is monstrous, yet you're telling me these guys can take him out so easily? Well, I should mention every single one of his skills leaves him vulnerable. The radius of his crowd control skills is too small to even call them crowd control skills. His self boost is alright, but doesn't do much since it feels like I'm playing with a tin can instead of a hulking metal giant. And his team boost is cool, I guess, but good luck using it before he gets erased from your party. Colossus is meant to be a strong tank who should be able to dish out some gnarly damage through his skills, but none of that is true in this game. You know, for being a console exclusive, shouldn't he at least be somewhat good? Look, just use the Hulk, the Thing, or even Luke Cage instead. At least he's fun to play with. Gonna end it on that. Colossus takes the sole F tier position. Number 32. Blade. Blade just absolutely stinks, which is quite unfortunate because he might also be the coolest character in the game. When it comes to Blade, well, his damage output is just too low to even classify him as a striker. I mean, he has high strike and can dish out some nice melee damage, but his powers, oh gosh, his powers, they are not good. The only two powers that are manageable to use are Slayer Slash and Spike of Destruction. Slayer Slash is a charge that can do some high damage to enemies within a small radius of it, and Spike of Destruction attaches a, well, Spike of Destruction onto enemies that will explode over time. The ability itself hits for high damage, and the Spike Explosion is a nice touch. The issue with this skill is the waiting for the explosion part, making it unreliable at some points when there's a group of enemies surrounding you. When it comes to his other skills, well, they suck. Gun Burst doesn't do enough damage and can only hit a single enemy one time, despite its 3-round burst. Glaive Strike is laughable, and Circle of Death is a terribly worse version of Slayer Slash. Hell, his self boost literally applies a debuff to him just to get the benefits of the buff. No other hero has that in the game, so why apply it to Blade? It's like the game doesn't even want you to excel when playing with him. The self boost is actually kind of solid, but there are other better damage boosts in the game. Blade's flashbang skill is easily his best utility if you have him on your team, as when you use it, it will stun enemies for a while. The radius of it is pretty generous too, making the utility of this skill the only great thing about the character. Overall, Blade might be the lamest cool character I've played as. Blood Haze is the coolest looking extreme in the game and does alright damage, all of his outfits are awesome, and they all look badass, and his regular melee moveset is also really cool. Like, he could just pull out a shotgun for his regular charged attack, that's sick. Everything else, well, sucks. The only reason he's not at F tier is because at least he can dish out some damage, and his flashbang skill is awesome. However, Blade's the lowest of C tiers. Try alternatives like Deadpool, maybe even Nightcrawler if you have him. Number 31. Venom. Look, Venom was such a cool opportunity to make an equal but potentially cooler version of what Spider-Man is in this game. Instead, we got some of Spider-Man's skills copied and pasted over to a blank character. The damage was lowered. They gave the skills a black texture and called that character Venom. Look, he's alright. He's got this self-boost called Claws that increases his critical hit chance, and it can do some work, especially if you have it upgraded all the way in hard mode. It makes his other skill, Venom Thrust, significantly better, as it's Venom's best singular enemy-focused skill. But without this boost, Venom's damage overall is just lackluster. His most unique and most useful move is Symbiote Flail, which can attach to multiple different enemies and knock them back away from Venom. However, there's another hero who does this skill better that we'll talk about way later on. Also, I should add that Venom can web swing just like Spider-Man. It's cool, but that's really it. The Symbiote Sludge Extreme is cool, as it will ensnare the enemies on screen with Venom Sludge, trapping them in their place for a while. But yeah, Venom is just the worst version of Spider-Man. I tried to enjoy playing with him, but his playstyle is lackluster and boring compared to other characters we'll talk about on this list. C tier. Number 30. Spider-Woman. Spider-Woman is a tank support character, and her usefulness can actually be seen in her regular AI usage when you use the Attract boost. This boost will make enemies target her instead of who you're playing as. She also has a really cool healing ability that can be useful if you don't have the option of putting Silver Surfer on your team, as he has a way better healing move. When it comes to actually playing with her, well, she's not exactly the best. Her focus isn't too high thanks to her stats leaning more towards body, as she's meant to be a tank. This is important to note because her powers don't do jack when it comes to damage, so you'll end up having to spam most of them to do something, but you'll easily run out of energy if you try to do that. Her only viable power is Venom Blast, and her utility lies in being able to trap enemies with the Ensnare power. Yeah, she does what she's meant to do well, but if I'm choosing a character for support, I'd want one who can at least deal some sort of damage, and there are a few options later on that check this off for me. The idea of building your team and including Spider-Woman on it just so she can heal or attract enemies isn't appealing to me. Most of the high-ranking characters I'll talk about don't really need this to excel. They're just so strong that she ultimately becomes useless. Therefore, Spider-Woman is a C-tier character. Number 29. Luke Cage. Luke Cage. Another instance of a hero looking awesome in each of his costumes and having cool looking abilities, but ultimately comes up short. I'll be honest, I have an absolute blast playing with Luke Cage. His moves are just so fluid and quick, they're just not high damaging. His jab skill is by far his best damage dealing move, and honestly, the other moves have some sort of utility for the rest of your team. I mean, Chain Strike can pop enemies up in the air, and you can even juggle an enemy if you time your attacks with the skill. Block Party is useful to keep enemies the heck away from Cage, as for each input, the radius of the continuous slams will increase. Hammer Toss has the same utility, and Drill Bit, well, it's one of the best radial powers in the game, but leaves you ultimately vulnerable as Luke Cage loves to spring out into the pool of enemies you're trying to hit with it after the move ends. Still, this is a suggested move. Its energy usage is small and can lead to some funny moments. His Street Smarts boost is an okay self boost, and Rebound kinda stinks a little. It's literally Spider-Woman's boost, but his body is too low to actually take the damage. Even with the damage reduction the boost gives you, and the projectile deflection being at 100%, it's notable at best. My two biggest issues with Cage are his health being low and his damage output from skills being just, bleh. For that reason, while he is fun to play as, there are better options, so Luke Cage sits comfortably at C tier. Number 28. Ms. Marvel. Ms. Marvel is one of the best of the C tier bunch. I mean, it's not a high praise or anything, but she's still useful, kinda. She actually has 3 different offensive powers that are viable, and she's a focus-based character with might and flight, making her utility for a team pretty useful. However, with other characters having the same attributes as her, but even better powers, her usefulness deteriorates due to how tricky some of her powers are to use. Prism is a great boss hitter and does high amounts of damage, but when fighting against regular enemies, I found myself having issues lining up the attack to where it could hit multiple enemies on one press. The damage the base beam offers kinda makes up for it, but I realized that Prism also costs a lot more energy than it should. Another useful offensive power, Nega Blast, is a good crowd control move that can hit enemies behind shields, and also provides some immense knockback so you can transition into ground punches with another character. And Photon Burst can automatically hone in on enemies and does okay amounts of damage. For the energy cost, it's worth to utilize this move despite the low damage, as it'll last you until all of the balls run out, giving you time to deal some other damage while the balls do their thing. Her best boost is Binary Boost, giving you some extra energy to all of her attacks and energy damage resistance for the team. While these moves can be a go-to for me, I found her other powers to be very lacking. Luminous's range is horrendous, and Explosive Touch is gimmicky and can lead to potentially dangerous situations. I'd rather just stay back and crush everything with Prism, let alone getting up close to some enemies just to tickle their beards. That really isn't the most appealing aspect about her. Her other boost, Cosmic Awareness, is gimmicky and I guess it can be useful. It's a cool boost, it slows down time. It's not necessary though. Despite her potential, Ms. Marvel just comes up flat, and that's why I am putting her at the top of the C tier. The main issue I have with her is that there are some better options, especially the other cosmic hero that we'll talk about later. While she can do the job and put the effort in, the outcome is mid at best. Number 27. Storm. Storm's a character that always seems to be underutilized when it comes to how she plays. As a solo character, well, she absolutely stinks. Her Lightning Strike ability is her highest and safest damage dealer, and even that doesn't do high damage. She can barely dish out damage against regular enemies, let alone even take on a boss. However, as a support character, she is probably the best option in the game. She has a handful of skills that will manipulate the playing field so other heroes can do the damage. Her Blitz skill will stun multiple different enemies at the same time, but the length of the stun is pretty short, so you'll end up having to spam the move to keep the enemy stunned. Chain Lightning is very similar, as it will halt enemies in their place for as long as you're rapidly pressing the respective button. And Hailstorm, well, it isn't that great of a move. I wish it would have applied the slowing effect to enemies. Conduction is a solid team boost, and Whirlwind Armor is a good self boost. And yeah, Storm has a really unique and different playstyle, and if you're playing this game with some friends, she might be a great option. But by herself, she doesn't offer much. I wish I could put her one tier higher, as I feel like Storm is a really cool character, but there are just better options in this game than her, especially the other elemental based character we'll talk about later. Therefore, she will have to go in the C tier. She's easily the best option out of C, but this just shows that making a strictly support based character in this game isn't the absolute best decision. Number 26, Dr. Doom. Look, I've seen Doom get a lot of flack on other tier lists and character ranking videos, and I can kind of see why, but I believe Dr. Doom is a viable enough character as he can be a beast. With Doom, you'll have to rely on his skills to survive. This can lead to a lot of energy usage, so saving some focus upgrades and putting them into Doom might be a good option. I also believe there's a hidden mechanic specifically associated with just Doom, to where you have a chance to instant KO a regular enemy anytime you hit them, with any attack, which is pretty busted if you ask me. Therefore, using a quick to use and good damaging ability like Mask of Doom can lead to tearing through waves of enemies because of this attribute. Doom Blast is a high damage dealing charge attack that can melt bosses. It is hard to aim, but since Doom has a high body stat, which means you'll have a good amount of health, you can get pretty close to a boss enemy and use the blast to decimate their health bar. Doom Detonation is a good crowd control move that will knock enemies who are close to Doom to the ground, and it does alright damage. The lightning abilities are alright, I guess. It seems like lightning abilities kind of suck in this game, so it's not just something to fault Doom on. Doom Shield is cool, and so is the Aura of Doom boost, but I don't really use them often because they just aren't super viable. Look, my issue with Doom is that the game doesn't know what he should be. He's got high body, but his strengths lie in his first 3 abilities. He has this instant KO mechanic that's not explained anywhere, so I feel like people didn't even know this was a thing. I also feel like he should be one of the stronger characters in the game because, you know, he's the main villain of the story. And the kicker for me is that his playstyle can be very boring, especially when you have alternatives to play as who are way more fun to play, like Cyclops or even Iron Man. But Doom isn't a terrible option. I think he's the lowest of B tier for me. Number 25, Magneto. Magneto was a character that grew on me during my most recent playthrough of this game. I used to not like playing with him at all. He has some really cool moves in X-Men Legends 2, and while his moves downgrade in the cool factor in this game, it makes up for it by actually dealing solid damage. Magnetic Toss is a fun to use move mimicking Captain America's shield throw, and does great damage while also knocking enemies down. Magnetic Beam is a simple levitation skill. You can manipulate the playing field with this, but it's not really required to put points into. It's another tool of his arsenal. His magnetic shield boost is also really cool, and so is his dark energy buff. It makes playing with Wolverine or other characters you haven't maxed out yet pretty viable. I also didn't find use in his magnetic pulse or magnetic explosion skill, but I think my favorite skill of his is shockwaves. While the damage isn't as good as other skills, the ease of use and crowd control potential makes this a must when fighting regular enemies. The energy usage for this move is pretty steep, so keep that in mind. Magneto is definitely not a boss melter or a high damage dealer, but he makes up for it with how fun he is to play. He has viable damage, better than Luke Cage's for sure, but I think he could have been better in this game. He's a low B tier for me. Number 24, The Thing. The Thing is a character that honestly shouldn't be this high on this list, but I recently noticed that his damage output can be very solid. His utility is also really solid, and here's why. Uppercut is his highest damaging skill and can absolutely send an enemy flying into orbit if you full charge it. Hand Clap is an outstanding move to stun multiple enemies around you, which leaves them stunned for a good while. And Bull Rush, oh my sweet Bull Rush, it's like I'm playing with Juggernaut again. Bull Rush is awesome in this game, mainly because the only time you use up energy while using it is if you hit an enemy or come into contact with an object. Like seriously, you can run around the map with this skill if you don't hit something. The move you don't want to use is Earth Clobber. I found it being kinda lame and taking up too much energy to be viable. But the boost you want to use is, well, both are actually viable and solid. They do almost the same thing, but one applies strictly to the Thing, and the other for your team. So really it's your choice on which you would want to apply for your situation. I think the Thing is a middle of the road damage dealer in this game. While there are a few better alternatives, I was just surprised he didn't suck. And for the reasons just said, he sits pretty at B tier. Number 23, Invisible Woman. The next Fantastic Four member on the list, coming in right after the Thing. Invisible Woman is a unique variation of how Elektra and Black Panther play in this game. She relies heavily on critical hits and stunning enemies, but instead of being up close and personal, the best way to use her is by utilizing her ranged game. The main offensive skill you should use for her is easily kinetic bolts, as it's a consistent damage dealer and is very energy efficient. The only issue I had with this skill is that it can be troublesome to aim at some points. She also has a skill called Kinetic Snare that makes damaging enemies so much easier. The move is easy to apply to any basic enemy, and it can trap an enemy within a kinetic spear, halting their movement and dealing solid damage over time. The combo of these two is pretty fun, but when you add her invisibility boost, well, she becomes a very sneaky inclusion to your team. Invisibility not only makes her invisible, but it also gives her a better percentage chance to critical hit an enemy. With the boost activated, every time you get a critical hit, it will automatically stun an enemy. Other than those three skills, her other skills aren't super great. Levitation is always a nice tool to have, but her concussion blast and kinetic surge skills don't do much for me. Her shield boost can be useful if fighting against ranged enemies, as the shield can deflect all projectile attacks. It is very situational though. She's got a fun playstyle, and she can be very useful with her trapping move, so what puts her here in this ranking? Well, while she excels in fighting regular enemies, her boss damage isn't the best, due to not being able to stun the boss. I noticed some bosses can be frozen or stuck thanks to her invisibility boost. I don't know if it's a glitch or not, but when I soloed with her, the boss wouldn't even attack her at some points. So that's something to keep in mind. This also applies to anyone else who has an invisibility-like move. Another reason she's this low is that you have to jump through some hoops to do some major damage with her. With other ranged characters above her, well, you're not required to stun enemies or rely on rolling the dice with critical hits to take them out. She's also not too great at crowd control. I had to switch maps to make sure I showcased her properly, as the Asgard Simulator Disc map was definitely not for her. Other than that, using Invisible Woman to manipulate the playing field so you can do some damage with other characters is a great move. While this isn't a huge requirement in this game, it's a nice switch up from the regular button mashing combat you might be used to, and the utility she can add to your team only boosts it. For what she is, however, Invisible Woman is an easy B tier. Number 22. Elektra. Speaking of Elektra, well, a lot of what applies to Invisible Woman applies to her as well. She has an interesting playstyle to nail down, but once you do so, she is a pretty solid and fun to play character. Her Nerve Strike ability, when fully maxed out, can stun enemies for 19 seconds, giving you time to dish out some heavy damage with her melee moves, or even skills like Side Stab or Death's Touch. Side Stab seems to have a hidden feature to where it'll do more damage to stun enemies. Like, literally, it's not even explained in the skill description, but this definitely applies. Death's Touch is Elektra's most powerful and potentially deadliest move. If you don't instantly kill the target, which when the skill is maxed out has a 30% chance to do so, you'll knock an enemy back into the cosmics. While these three moves are great to use, her other moves kind of suck. Spin Kick has very low damage, and Ninja Stars isn't the best either. Her boost, however, her boost. Inner Calm gives a great team damage boost and is a welcome option if you have her on the team. However, Inner Chi is an amazing self boost that I can't recommend as much as I am right now. Use this and you'll be unstoppable with Elektra. Just like Invisible Woman, however, there are a few reasons why she's placed here. One of them is that you have to jump through some hoops to do some major damage with her. With the striking characters above her, well, you're not required to stun enemies or rely on rolling the dice for critical hits to take them out. She's also not too great at crowd control. Just like I did for Invisible Woman, I had to switch the map I was on to properly showcase her. She is also a glass cannon, so giving her a gear piece that offers health, body, or defense is a good move. Elektra is really good at taking out singular enemies, but that's it. She isn't garbage by no means, and there are great applications for her, and that's why she's a B tier character. Number 21. Wolverine.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I know, get your booze out now. I've always been split with Wolverine in this game. He's the definition of a glass cannon. He can dish out some high damage, but he can also get rocked very easily. He's a great boss killer, but is not good at crowd control or taking out groups of regular enemies. He can be fun to play as, but he's one of the harder characters to master in this game. As you can see, with each positive, there's a negative. Wolverine is a great example of risk and reward. His skills are steep to level up, due to how he doesn't get the same skill point distribution like everyone else does. My main build relied on using the Fury boost to my advantage, and to use Claw Slash strategically, as that would do the highest damage. Wolverine's also unique because he has a rage mechanic, and he's the only character in the game with it. If you fill up that rage meter down there, he'll do some cool moves you can't do without it. For example, his regular Claw Slash move turns into a Claw Frenzy, slashing enemies non-stop and doing great amounts of damage. However, when using this move, your energy will drain like crazy, so you have to be smart on how and when you use it. It's also important to note that rage lasts a limited amount of time. I don't know, man. I just wish I could like Wolverine like others do. Others have him high on their list, but the negatives for me just outweigh the positives. He's just got too much going on to be considered one of the better pure strike options in this game. Other options are safer and don't require this much min-maxing. With that being said, he's a middle of the road B tier for me. Maybe once I master how he works I can bump him up, but for now he sits pretty right at number 21. Number 20. Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider can be a tricky character to make into a damage dealing machine. However, I believe he's at his best when it comes to his team health support and damage output. Ghost Rider also has 4 amazing looking and genuinely useful costumes, and they alternate between boosting Hellfire and chain damage. However, I find that using the classic or Vengeance costume is the best when you want to deal high damage. The Western's good for chain damage and gaining energy while fighting regular enemies. And the original has a really good support attribute that gives you a chance to revive an ally automatically when they get downed. He's got solid moves, but his best damage dealer is Ravaging Flame. This can melt enemies and some bosses due to its automatic tracking, high damage output, and quickness to use. Chain Flechette is a great crowd control move that knocks enemies back from Ghost Rider. While I was under the impression at first that Fiendish Chains was his best move, well, another character has a similar move to that, and it's way better for that character. Overall, Ghost Rider is fun to play as, and a very welcome support character to the team. You just have to build him the right way and stay away from the skills I didn't mention. For that reason, I'll put him in the B tier. Number 19. Thor. Thor is pretty fun to use. He acts as a tank that can dish out some good damage, thanks to his Mjolnir's Might skill, a chargeable skill that has a chance to instantly KO enemies when fully charged. This skill can hit multiple enemies close to the impact of it, which can lead to some devastation. He has one of the most fun to use boosts in this game with Godspeed, which when activated will increase the speed of all attacks, both melee and skills, by a specific amount. His other boost, Asgardian's Blessing, can be key when playing with characters you don't fully have upgraded yet, or even a character like Wolverine who is very tough to upgrade. This skill will increase every hero's skill amount by 1 as long as you have a point in the skill. His hammer throw is a useful move to quickly stun enemies, and it can pierce through enemies while being thrown and when returning to Thor. This can cause any enemy within the trajectory of the hammer to pretty much get stunned. His Northwind skill is a great crowd control move, and it can potentially keep enemies up in the air forever depending on your thumb strength and energy usage. The enemy stuck in the tornado will also continuously take damage. While his Mjolnir Slam move lacks damage and his lightning ability just isn't great either, he is pretty much a way better version of Storm. He can act as a support character, or even a character who can dish out good damage. It's also important to mention he's got one of the most useful extreme attacks in the game, as when you activate it, it will recharge everyone's energy up to 70%. My issue with Thor, however, is his lack of striking. I know they probably kept his striking down so that players wouldn't abuse Godspeed and just mercilessly tear enemies a new one, but if he had a higher striking stat, he would easily be one of the best brawlers in the game, despite how he's supposed to be a tank. Thor sits high in the B tier, and is pretty close to A. Number 18. Daredevil. Daredevil is an unlockable character and is very fun to play as due to his cool animations and emphasis on his baton usage. Baton Smash is a strong, chargeable attack, which can stun an enemy if you fully charge it, leading to an easy knockout right after. Baton Throw also focuses in on a single enemy, but can pull them down to the ground, leading to some easy ground pounds. If you fling an enemy into another, or into Daredevil, you get some contact damage too, which is a great way to immobilize a single enemy to get some quick damage in, and this is also a skill you can spam on a boss to get some quick and easy damage. Extensive Strike is Daredevil's best move. It does high damage and can hit an enemy twice, once on the way out and once on the way back in. It's a quick to use move and offers the highest damage output of any of his skills. Devastation is a great crowd control move that will trip all enemies that get hit by it, and it's pretty fun to use. And Pounce, well, it kinda sucks. It's a single enemy usage move that leaves you super vulnerable and doesn't do high enough damage. His boosts are also pretty cool. Hypersense will slow down time to make attacks easily dodgeable, and Blind Sight reveals enemies on the minimap while also giving your team a physical damage increase. I really don't have much complaints when it comes to Daredevil, other than that his health is quite low and can be taken out pretty easily. Investing in a gear piece to counteract this can do wonders. Daredevil is a high B tier. He would be an A, but there are characters that excel better in what he accomplishes. Number 17. Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is an interesting character and probably the most unique in the game. He doesn't excel in dishing out damage, but rather manipulating enemies for your team. With that being said, he is a great utility character that can hold his own at the same time. The Black Magic skill is going to be his main damage dealing source, as this skill has a very high chance to turn enemies into crates. Yes, I said that. He can turn enemies into crates. There's a very generous percentage on it happening, but if it doesn't, the skill still has a high damage output anyways, so you shouldn't stress. When it comes to his other abilities, the only one I didn't really find a use for was Mystic Bolts. That skill doesn't do enough damage to justify the energy you pour into it. Everything else is fair game. Faultine Flame is a good skill to have since Doctor Strange has a low body stat, and this skill can rapidly heal him. Eldritch Aura spawns pixies that will hone in on an enemy and damage them every second, which in turn also makes the enemy flinch to where they stop attacking. Levitation is always a useful skill to have, but you'll never need to invest points into it. His Mind Wipe skill is cool, I just wish it would turn enemies on your side for much longer. And his Teleport skill. This skill can help you fly through maps with a very low energy cost, which in turn can make him one of the best speedrunning characters because of this. It's also a good skill to have to get yourself out of a sticky situation. Doctor Strange is a very fun switch up from other characters you can play as. While he isn't an A tier character for me, he is very justifiable to get the highest spot in the B tier. Alright, so we're about halfway through the ranking. I just wanted to chime in and ask, what do you guys think? Are my takes hot garbage? Do you agree with my placements? Well, whatever you're thinking, I'd love to hear it. Leave a comment down below, and maybe like the video if you're enjoying it so far. that would be awesome. This is a pretty niche topic, so like, any type of support I can get is good support. Alright, let's go back into the ranking. Number 16. Captain America. Captain America is just a great all-around team player and damage dealer. His shield attacks are all stellar at doing damage, other than one, which is Energy Shield. Its radius is small and just kinda stinks. However, the rest of his skills are all fair game on whether or not you want to use them. My two favorites are Shield Throw and Shield Charge. Shield Throw lets you throw Cap's shield around the playing field, and if you hold down the respective skill button, you can control where the shield goes, knocking down enemies who are hit by it and potentially hitting an enemy multiple times with just one usage. His Shield Charge is basically Bull Rush, but cooler. It's so awesome. While the Thing's Bull Rush skill doesn't consume energy when you're not hitting something, this one does. Shield Bash is a chargeable move that can stun an opponent on full charge. His boosts are also stellar depending on how you're playing with Cap. If you're actively using him, focusing on his reserve strength boost can beef him up quite a bit, giving him more attack speed and melee damage. However, if you just have him on the team and want to use his team boost, Heroism reduces the damage taken by your team by a good amount. His costumes are cool, I love Captain America, and I really have no major complaints with him. He's a powerful striker with great skills. His only issue is bossing. He may not be the best at taking bosses out, but he's one of the best when it comes to taking out large groups of enemies. He sits right at the bottom of the A tier for me. Number 15. Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler was one of my favorite characters in X-Men Legends 2 to play as, so being able to play as him in this game was pretty sick. Acrobatic Kick is a 2-hit auto-targeting chargeable skill that does crazy damage, even just by the click of the button. Charging it on the other hand, well, it's usually an instant KO on a regular enemy. Sword Mastery is cool and can help you slash through groups of enemies as it will damage anyone near the attack. I did find the damage of this skill to be quite lacking though. His Sword Whirlwind skill is miles better than it was in the aforementioned X-Men Legends 2, and it even feels better than Deadpool's as the animation seems to go faster than his. There's also the period of where you activate the skill and when you actually go into the whirlwind, as enemies will get damaged if they're near you when you start the skill. The main issue I have with Nightcrawler, however, are his teleport powers. Bamfing Blitz is a really cool move, and if you're focusing on one enemy like the move forces you to, well, it can be pretty good. It'll leave you pretty vulnerable, however. But this should make it a good boss move, right? Well, no, because it doesn't work on bosses for some reason. Okay, that's one downside, but what about his Bamf Flurry skill? The damage output really isn't great, and can leave you vulnerable for other enemies to smack on you during... Smack on you? It leaves you vulnerable enough to where other enemies can hit you during the long-winded animation. With all of the negatives out of the way, his two boosts, Sword Combat and Shadow Crawl, are solid. But Sword Combat should be an absolute go-to. It straight up boosts Nightcrawler's damage of any physical attack, and since all of his skills are physical, well, that's just a flat out damage increase. Nightcrawler, just like most of his other Gold Edition characters, are worth playing as. He can act as a dominant damage dealer, and if you really like Nightcrawler, well, he is very viable in this game. Low A tier. Number 14. Nick Fury. Nick Fury may only have two amazing offensive skills, but those two skills do wonders. Sniper Rifle is very high damaging, potentially knocking out a regular enemy if it hits them. The chance for this happening is automatically locked at 25%, or 50% if an enemy is stunned, so upgrading the skill just increases the damage. This makes this ability immediately viable once you unlock Fury, and boy, it's a solid move. Not to mention it's probably the highest damaging ranged move in the game. Furious is a lethal grab move where Fury will grab an enemy by the throat and slam them on the ground, knocking down any enemy hit by the one you just threw in the process. This skill can be used very quickly on boss-like enemies, leading to some very, very fast and high DPS. It's like he's uppercut jabbing, it's a funny scene. His other two skills, SMG and Frag, are lackluster in damage and utility. However, I should mention that SMG allows you to use it while on the move. It's a cool gimmick, I just wished it did more damage. It would have been one of the most fun to use skills in the game if it had some more oomph. Both of his boosts are viable as well, as stealth is always a welcome addition, making Fury have a similar playstyle to the likes of Invisible Woman or Black Panther, and motion sensor reveals enemies on the minimap and decreases damage taken by the team. Overall, Nick Fury is very powerful when you use the right moves. He is a worthy addition to your team. While he lacks variety, he makes up for it with damage for any circumstance that you're in. Low A tier. Number 13. Moon Knight. Moon Knight is an interesting character, as you're locked from his best skill until like level 20 or so, therefore you're forced to use his other moves until you've unlocked it. The aforementioned skill is called Nunchucks, and this is the best boss destroyer in this game. I have so much footage of me plowing through enemies and bosses with this skill, it's not even funny. The biggest issue with this skill is the energy consumption. This skill eats through energy like termites to wood, so it may be a good idea to equip a gear piece like Blackheart's Corruption, or even Crimson Dawn. His Staff Slam skill is also a solid crowd control tool that knocks enemies down to the ground, allowing you to get some ground punches in. As Moon Knight himself, because his regular attacks do some great damage if you have his staff combat boost activated. I also enjoyed using Boomerang, but it's a skill that's done better by two other characters, Captain America and Magneto, so it's not necessarily a skill I would consider a first option for the Knight. I wouldn't say Moon Knight is just a one-trick pony, however. I found that using his staff combat boost to up his melee damage is an absolute blast. He just feels so powerful, even with his regular combos. And to combine that with his boss killing potential makes him an easy A tier. The only reason he isn't higher on this list is because while Nunchucks is one of the best skills in the game, that's his biggest selling point. He also doesn't offer too much when it comes to a good team boost, but with Nunchucks alone, I had to place him this high. And come on, it's Moon Knight, who doesn't want to play as Moon Knight? Number 12. Spider-Man. Look, I didn't realize at first how busted Spider-Man can be, but in hard mode, if you upgrade his web shield boost all the way, you'll basically obtain invincibility once you activate the boost. Therefore, Spider-Man is the best tank in the game because of this boost alone. When it comes to his damage output, he is pretty strong as well. He's got a unique playstyle. His Web Warrior attack will be your main tool, as the basic functionality of it is that you can fling an enemy towards you, knocking them down on the ground. If they come into contact with any object or another character, they'll take contact damage. The best thing about this ability is when you pair it with Web Snare. Web snaring an enemy will trap that enemy with webs. They will not be able to move. Therefore, when you use Web Warrior, on an ensnared enemy, you'll just straight up get the damage of Web Warrior without the animation. I should also mention you can use Web Warrior on a boss to get the same effect. I should also mention, when you do this, you don't lose energy. This makes Web Warrior potentially one of the highest, most efficient, and safest damage dealers in the game. The only gripe I have with it is that when I try to Web Warrior an enemy, sometimes Spider-Man will just grab the random barrel behind him instead of the actual enemy. It's pretty annoying. Spider-Man's Web Bullets is a great alternative if you don't want to specifically use his combo, and this can dish out some high DPS, making it excellent against bosses. It's also to note that Spider-Man has the best unique grab move in the game, and one of the best extremes in the game. His unique grab move puts an enemy in a web sack, rendering them immobile for a good amount of time. The same applies to his extreme, but it will put every enemy on the screen into a web sack. Just wow. Spider-Man excels in what he does, and his utilities are some of the best in the game. My only issue is his other two moves not being the greatest, however that shouldn't dock him too many points. Spider-Man sits comfortably in the middle of the A tier. Number 11. Black Panther. Black Panther is very similar to Elektra, but a little bit more well-rounded and ultimately can dish out more DPS. A lot of what I said for Elektra applies to him here, but a lot of the negatives disappear as well. He doesn't rely on stunning enemies to get the best out of him. His raw damage is where it's at. His Energy Daggers move might be one of the best range moves in the game, as when it's maxed out it can dish out to 5 daggers in a close-knit wave that can deal with multiple enemies at once, or you can even channel them all into one enemy for some insanely high damage. Razor Cyclone is perfect for knocking down groups of enemies, and while Nightcrawler's and Deadpool's variant of this move is better, this is still such a good move that I have to mention it works well with Black Panther as well. His Crippling Blow move has a good chance to apply a critical hit to an enemy, so it's worth it to invest in this if you're playing a more stealthy build that takes on characters one-on-one. Speaking of stealth, Black Panther's stealth boost is awesome. You become invisible to enemies you haven't attacked yet, and depending on how much you have it leveled up, there's a chance to take away 33% of an enemy's health. This doesn't work on bosses, but you can make quick work of enemies with this applied, and by attacking them with Crippling Blow. The same glitch that I had with Invisible Woman when it comes to her invisibility move also applies to Black Panther's stealth. Overall, Black Panther is so fun to play as, and you can play with his unique stealth playstyle, or just dish out some crazy damage. Either way, you're going to enjoy playing with him. He's easily an A tier character. Number 10. Human Torch. The Human Torch is the absolute best crowd control character in the game. To add on top of that, he's got some moves that can dish out high damage and quick DPS. To start, his Inferno skill has no limit on how many enemies it can pop up at a time. With that being said, you can manipulate the playing field with a single skill use, as this skill will deal high damage to enemies while also popping them up. You can also use it on bosses to do quick damage, and since it automatically targets whatever you're trying to use the skill on, spamming it is the best way to go. It's an energy efficient move as well, so don't be afraid to spam it. His Firestorm ability is his second best option, as using it will leave fire on the ground to inflict an enemy with fire damage over time. The initial hit of the skill also has high damage if you charge it up fully. His other skills, Wildfire and Flamethrower, aren't the best damage wise. However, Fireballs can be a very useful range move to keep enemies at bay while still dishing out some okay damage. His two boosts are great, with Nova Blast giving him a shield of fire that will burn enemies in it, and also giving the Torch some extra fire damage to his melee attacks. His other boost, Ring of Fire, is the best choice however, as this team boost will give each team member a chance to ignite enemies with melee attacks, while also giving the team a nice damage reduction. The Human Torch is very useful. He has some of the best outfits attribute-wise in the game, and his damage potential is so very high he can do so many things in combat, all from a safe distance, making him a very valuable asset to any team. He is an easy A tier hero. Number 9. Iceman. Iceman has all of the utility your team would need. Many of his attacks will slow or straight up freeze enemies. Polar Explosion is the go-to, as it will deal some solid damage in a large radius, and can slow enemies in the process. Freeze Beam is so very useful for controlling enemies as you can just freeze them, glacierize them. It's so much fun. It's also important to know that if you get a critical hit on an enemy inside of their custom-made igloo, courtesy of Iceman, they will shatter instantly. Ice Shards is fun to use and is especially important to use against bosses, as the damage makes it a solid choice thanks to its rapid DPS and range. Blizzard is another fun to use move that will knock enemies down consistently, but the Freeze Beam and Polar Explosion should be priority. His Ice Slide ability is useful for traversing a map with ease, however it does cost energy to use, so just put the 2 points into it, as every time you upgrade it more, it will cost more energy. It's just useful to have as a traversal tool. Also, you can use this skill without having it equipped to a skill slot. Just press Y, and press Y again and hold, to slide around the map. And his extreme deep freeze is one of the best in the game, having a high chance to freeze enemies while doing a good amount of damage to them. His Frostbite boost is alright, as it gives Iceman and the whole team some extra damage through ice gloves that Bobby will apply to their hands, but his Frigid Aura boost is awesome. Any enemy that comes close to Iceman will take cold damage and get slowed down depending on how many points you have in the skill. The highest upgrade halves an enemy speed by 50%. Iceman may lack in the damage department at some points, therefore leading to slacking in the boss killing department, but he sits high in A tier due to his usefulness on a team alone, his amazing crowd control, and because of how cool he is. Ugh, cut that was terrible. Number 8. Sabretooth. Sabretooth, dare I say it, is miles better than Wolverine in this game. He is an absolute menace with high striking. The DPS you can get from him is insane if you utilize his Berserker Rage boost, which speeds up every attack of his drastically. While his first 3 moves are solid, the last 2 moves you unlock, Disembowel and Talon Frenzy, are absolute peak and fun to use. Disembowel knocks enemies down that are around you, acting as a great crowd control move, and Talon Frenzy is just insane. It's basically Wolverine's first rage move, but you can use it without having to build up rage. This skill can do high damage, single-handedly destroy a group of enemies, as well as shred through a boss health bar. This can also act as a movement skill as well, making Sabretooth as speedy as he is deadly. Due to how fast and powerful this skill is, its energy usage becomes a problem. Therefore, having Crimson Dawn or Blackheart's Corruption equipped can make Sabretooth a non-stop slicing machine. The move can leave you pretty vulnerable, as it won't stun or knock enemies down, so keep this in mind before you mindlessly spam it. Sabretooth may not be the best damage dealer in the game, but I'd be lying to myself by saying he is not close. He is a very high A tier for me. Number 7. Cyclops. Cyclops is an interesting character. I always underestimate him in every game I've played with him, yet he consistently stays one of the best ranged characters in his respective game. His main optic beam attack can be focused or unfocused, and usually when a character has this ability I just ignore it because it usually sucks. However, you can spam this ability pretty quick and can do good damage whether it's charged or not. Don't even bother with unfocusing it, just focus it every time, trust me. He also has 2 other pretty solid attack skills, Ricochet Blast and Optic Explosion, both offering good value when it comes to crowd control. Optic Explosion is my choice, however, as if you fully charge it, it will knock any enemies within like 7 feet of Cyclops to the ground, and that can be very useful on some occasions. Yeah, in closed off rooms, Ricochet Blast might be the better option, but I had more fun with the other move. Both of his boosts are solid, but his beam power boost was my go-to when it came to playing with Cyclops. It straight up boosts his beam damage, and yeah, you can get some funky numbers with this boost active. While Cyclops has high damage outputs for a ranged character, I do have 2 issues with him. His optic beam skill may be powerful when it hits, but it can be hard to aim, as you can't re-aim the character once you start charging it. Many enemies and bosses will randomly roll out of the way, leaving you feeling like a goof sometimes. However, this can be easily counteracted by just spamming the move and releasing it quickly, as the damage you can do just by doing this is very high. And my other issue is that his extreme isn't super great and has a really long animation, which can leave you pretty vulnerable. As you can see from the background footage, it's still going, but that's a very minor complaint. Other than that, Cyclops gets the highest A tier I can give a hero. His damage output makes him one of the most reliable ranged characters in the game, and he can shred through enemies or bosses alike. Number 6. Silver Surfer. Silver Surfer is a choose-your-own-adventure sort of character. He's got one of the best support boosts in the game with heal, he's got ranged attacks and beams and can dish out some heavy damage from afar, not to mention his crowd control is superb thanks to Surfer's rage, and his utility is a step above everyone else's as he has a surfboard. He's sick, dude. His uniquely crafted and intricate outfits are all useful and can be changed depending on how you want to play as a surfer. He is an absolute grind to unlock. Unless you use cheat codes, then disregard that. However, that's the only downside to him. Talking more in depth about his powers, well, Molecular Mix-Up is an amazing to use and quick piercing beam that will inflict a damage over time buff to enemies that get hit by it or are near the beam. This skill does really high damage for a piercing shot. Cosmic Beam does the same minus the damage over time buff, but is a chargeable skill and has a very high damage output. It can also pierce through enemies. I found Surfer's Rage to be an outstanding crowd control move, and while it doesn't do damage, it makes sure enemies are nowhere near Silver Surfer. It's also a better alternative to Storm's crowd control moves like Chain Lightning, and even Venom's Symbiote Flail. I also gotta mention how stupidly great his healing boost is, and yeah, you may not use it commonly, but it can do wonders if you need it. His slowing down of time skill is cool. I don't care for this skill at all on any of the other characters, so I just make sure I keep heal ready at all times. He's an outstanding option for a ranged character in this game, inching ahead of Cyclops, and he's easily the better counterpart to Ms. Marvel. I don't know, I just feel like Silver Surfer takes a lot of the skills from like the mid-tier characters in this game, and when he has all these skills together, it just makes him a really good hero overall. Silver Surfer is going into the S tier, barely scraping the entry of it. Number 5. Hulk. Hulk is a character who shouldn't be this busted. Like, I get it, he's this big green giant with super strength and is known to be insanely powerful, but he's also the fastest character in this game if you apply one of his boosts to him. I'm not complaining at all. The Fury boost makes Hulk grow big and scary. It boosts his damage, as well as his attack speed. But for some reason, if you dodge roll with Fury activated, it will fling Hulk across the map at a rapid speed, making him one of the best options when it comes to traversing through the game at a quick speed. His Cyclone Punch skill is solid, being a strong 2-hit chargeable punch that will stun an enemy when fully charged. I know Colossus has a very similar skill to this, however the Hulk's just does way more damage. His Hulk Stomp can be devastating if you're able to knock an enemy up into the air with it. It also has shockwave damage that will flinch enemies multiple times if they get hit by each shockwave. I really enjoyed stomping enemies to knock them up in the air, and timing my Cyclone Punch attack to where it would one-hit them. That is such a fun combo I never got tired of when playing as the Green Giant. His other skills are just the same skills Colossus has. They have a little bit better damage, but they can automatically be better if you have the Fury boost activated. The Hulk is just insanely good at being a high damage dealer, as well as offering so much utility with his insanely quick movement speed that I have to rank him as an S tier. He'll do the job, that's for sure. He's one of the most entertaining bruisers to play with in this game. Number 4. Hawkeye. Hawkeye is easily one of the best ranged characters in this game, only beaten by the hero right above him. His damage output with multiple skills can lead to some of the highest damage numbers I've seen. He's got abilities to keep himself in check when it comes to fighting regular enemies as well. For example, Piercing Shot will pierce through enemies, stunning them in the process, and Paralyzer is a rapid tap move that will instantly stun an enemy it hits. Like, come on, don't you see how broken this can be? He also has his multi-shot ability, which led to me getting some of the highest damage numbers I've seen in the game. This move can easily take out some bosses within a few charges of it. His other skills are also really cool, but I gotta talk about his boosts. Both of the boosts are solely to boost Hawkeye himself, but they can do some pretty heavy lifting. Hawk's Revenge gives Hawkeye a stupidly high damage boost, while Hypershot gives him an attack speed boost, leading to some great DPS. Look, Hawkeye overall is just a beast when it comes to taking any enemy out in this game, regular or bosses alike. He really felt unstoppable every time I played with him. For this reason, he is in S tier. Number 3. Iron Man. Iron Man is the best blaster in the game, and has 2 of the best boosts in the game as well. Not to mention his useful utility by having flight, might, and a great team boost. And I didn't even mention his skills yet. Iron Man's Plasma Disc skill is a high damaging ability that also has an explosion radius associated with it, making it one of the best ranged moves when it comes to single enemy targeting and crowd control. His Unibeam skill is like Cyclops' Ricochet Blast, but better as it fires quickly and pierces through enemies, leading to consistent damage in closed spaces. His Rocket Uppercut makes him a viable option for dishing out some strong damage up close and personal, and plus it's really fun seeing an enemy fly across the map after fully charging the move. The Nano Assault move is the only move that's damage wise, but helps keep enemies away from Iron Man. It can be a good last minute decision to switch to this move and spam it to keep enemies away if Iron Man is struggling, which hopefully shouldn't happen often. His self-boost Speed Overdrive isn't as stupidly broken as its counterpart Motion Overdrive from X-Men Legends 2, however a lot of the same buffs from that boost are carried over into this game, minus the movement speed buff. His attack speed gets boosted as well as his overall damage. Yes, I tested this and it doesn't just boost his melee damage. This may have something to do with how if you look at his skills, there's no specific modifier for the type of damage each skill does, so therefore all of his skills get boosted because of this. His team boost, Energy Reroute, is the second best team boost in this game, decreasing your team's energy cost by all the way up to half, just depending on how much it's upgraded. Iron Man is busted. He's got utility, boosts for himself and his team, and 3 very strong moves that cover all aspects of combat, whether you're at range or up close, or fighting a whole group of enemies or even a boss. Iron Man is a go-to hero. Easy, easy S tier. Number 2, Mr. Fantastic. I could easily make the case for Mr. Fantastic being the best character in this game due to his high damage output and usefulness, as well as his sheer fun factor, as his animations are no doubt some of the coolest in this game. The kicker for Mr. Fantastic is that his Fantastic Fist boost, when upgraded all the way, is actually broken. It literally gives you over 100% critical hit chance, as well as boosting your melee damage by 50%. This alone makes every single one of Mr. Fantastic's skills amazing. Even without the boost, many of his skills are already solid to begin with. My 2 favorites have to be Elastic Crush and Rubber Band Recoil. Elastic Crush is a great damage dealer to regular and boss enemies, and Rubber Band Recoil is an amazing crowd control move that does high amounts of damage as well. Apply Fantastic Fist and these skills will either one-hit any regular enemy or absolutely decimate their health bar. His Pinball skill is also one of the most fun to use moves in the game, and it also acts as a movement tool to fly through levels as well. Knocking enemies around with this skill was very satisfying. Keep in mind the reason why he is busted is because hard mode increases your skill caps to add even more damage or utility to your skills. He may not be as busted in normal mode, but he is still a very, very high damage dealing character. Even in normal mode, the Fantastic Fist skill is still very, very solid and something you should try to apply every chance you get. For these reasons, Mr. Fantastic is the best damage dealer in this game, and that's why he is an easy S tier. Number 1, Deadpool.
Hey everybody, look! I won!
Yes, Deadpool, you won. There's a huge bias here, as this game was the reason I discovered Deadpool, but that doesn't change the fact that he is easily the best character in the game for me. To start, Deadpool has the best range skill in the game with Dual Shot. The energy usage is somewhat high, but so is the damage output. You can stay far away from any enemy and dish out some killer damage at a rapid speed, making him a viable ranged option. The skill also has a high chance to knock down a basic enemy, which is so very useful when fighting against many regular enemies. Blade Cyclone is a killer whirlwind attack that can decimate any enemy in its path. This is a great crowd control move that can also act as a great boss damaging move. Grenade Toss is a fun to use crowd control move, as Deadpool can jump up in the air throwing 3 grenades that explode on impact, and the explosion radius is very generous. While I wish the damage was a bit higher, it's still a cool skill. Assassin Strike is a solid slash skill as it can hit multiple different enemies, and since the animation gives you 2 hits with 1 use, yeah, it's good enough as a first skill. And Teleport Fury is probably his worst move, as the teleport moves in this game lack oomph, which was my issue with Nightcrawler earlier. I think the best part about Deadpool is his team boost, Battle Cry. When you use this boost, this skill will increase damage done by any member of your team, Deadpool included. The kicker with this boost is that it's a flat out damage increase. It doesn't increase your damage with a percentage like other damage increase boosts. This can lead to any hero becoming viable if the boost is applied to them. His other boost, Wisecrack, is one of the best taunts in the game as it can increase the amount of damage an enemy can take by a great percentage amount. Overall, Deadpool can make any hero a tier better thanks to his boost. He can do it all damage wise, and his teleport makes him so useful when it comes to getting out of sticky situations, or to get to areas in a map you wouldn't be able to get to otherwise. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Deadpool is the best character in Marvel Ultimate Alliance. And there I was as a kid playing him because he was funny. Now, he's the top choice for me. Good job, Deadpool. I hope you guys enjoyed the character ranking. I spent a lot of time with this game for the past 2 months, preparing to make the retrospective video for it. Like I said earlier, it'll take some time to make, so I wanted to make this video so you guys have something while I work on it. I had a serious amount of complications making this video, due to the game crashing pretty consistently. That's what I get for wanting to play this on my old Xbox One. The amount of times I restarted my Xbox or reinstalled the game just so it wouldn't crash probably equals up to however many characters there are in this game. So if you guys enjoyed, leaving a like and possibly subscribing would mean a lot to me. Even if you don't, thank you for taking time out of your day to watch this video. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and as always, peace out.